There we go. All right, good stuff. Okay, so what we've been doing for the last 14 weeks predominantly, give or take a couple weeks where I might have been out, is we've been going through the Mike Ferry 21-point sales system, and we've gone through the first 14 points. This week we are on point 15, which is tracking numbers. So I have a list of thoughts, ideas in regards to tracking numbers. Some of it you may have heard before. Some of it might be the first time you've heard it. Some of it just might be a really good reminder because you haven't heard it in a while. But either way, hopefully the goal is that there's a couple points in here that you find really good. Probably not every point's going to hit that mark for you, but we're just trying to find a couple here. Okay, they're not necessarily written in any particular order of importance. How they're written, you figure out what's more important to you. All right, so let's jump into this. So tracking numbers. So first point I wrote down here under tracking numbers is this: the fastest way to learn who you are as a real estate salesperson, the fastest way to learn who you are as a real estate salesperson, your strengths and weaknesses, your level of efficiency, and what it will take to succeed is to track your numbers. So I'll say that again. The fastest way to learn who you are as a real estate salesperson, your strengths and weaknesses, your level of efficiency, and what it will take to succeed is to track your numbers. You can't figure out who you are, strength is, what your weakness is, if there's nothing proving any of that. You know, so let me give you an example. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. Have you ever heard a real estate agent say that they are really great working their database? Have you ever heard somebody say that? Okay. I'm assuming a lot of you don't have your cameras on, so I'm just going to assume that you're nodding. Okay. Well, here's what's fascinating. Okay, I hear this all the time. Well, Robert, I get all my business comes from my database. All my business comes from referrals. I've got that nailed. And I always do this. Okay, great. Well, how many people do you have in your database? And they'll throw out a number like 200, 250. I don't know, whatever the numbers may be. Some people will throw out like ridiculous numbers. I have 1,000, and I'm openly honest and I say, no, you don't. Okay, it's like 1,000 LinkedIn contacts. So they'll say 250. Okay, great. How many in your database? Well, I closed 10 deals last year and all 10 came from my database. Wow, that's great. Good for you. But would you be curious to know how many deals you lost? Well, what do you mean? Well, 250 people in your database should have generated 20 to 25 deals. You did 10. Which means really, yes, you got 10 deals, but you lost 10 to 15 deals by not working your database. So this is the idea of tracking numbers. If you don't track the numbers, you don't realize that you actually don't have such a grip on your database. This is just this particular example, right? And there's a variety of other different things. You also don't know what it might take to succeed. Well, how many contacts do you need to get a deal? I get this question all the time. Robert, how many contacts do I need to make to get a listing? Well, I don't know, because everybody's different. What I can tell you is start making a bunch of contacts, track it, and then we can start to see in the next few months how many contacts you need to find a deal, how many contacts you need to get a listing. And then we can base a plan around that. Okay. So you need to kind of figure that out. So let me ask you this in terms of strengths and weaknesses. Let me give you an example, another example of that. If I look at your numbers analyzer, I look at your numbers, and your listing closing ratio is say 20 or 25%, meaning that on a listing, you get a listing contract signed 25% of the time. Does anybody want to take a guess as to what's the first thing I'm going to say is the reason. Anybody want to take a guess? You can put it in the chat box or unmute yourself. If you have a low listing closing ratio, what's the first thing that I'm going to say you need to work on? Anybody want to take a shot at that? Alicia says,
Tracking your numbers.
what's that, Veronica?
Yeah, tracking your numbers.
Tracking, right, yeah. So if you track your numbers and I see that you have a low closing ratio on your listings, what do you think's the first thing I'm going to go to as to the reason? Alicia says closing in the chat box. Could be. Anybody else? What's that, Matt?
Prequal.
Pre-qual, okay. I'm not saying anyone's right or wrong. I'm just seeing if anyone else wants to participate. Yukiko says the listing presentation. Yeah, okay, great. The answer is, as Matt said, the prequal. So if you have a low closing ratio, the very first thing I'm going to say is, okay, great. Are you pre-qualifying listing? And are you asking 100% of the questions? That's the very first thing I'm going to say. Now, the natural reaction would be, well, God, I got to work on my listing presentation. I need to work on my closing, things like that. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to ask about the pre-qual. Why am I going to ask about the pre-qual? Why do you think, realistically, why do you think I'm going to go to the pre-qual first? That's why your closing ratio is low.
Know their motivation.
Know their motivation. And why is that important? How would that relate to being a low? You're right, to know their motivation, but why would that lead to a low closing ratio?
Low closing.
Tess is right, it's motivation. But here's why. I would bet if I saw a low closing ratio on your listings, you're going on a lot of listing appointments with people that are not really listing.
Yeah, non-motivated.
Right, they're non-motivated. Yep. I see this all the time. On listing appointments, my closing ratio is 25%. Robert, what's my problem? Well, let's start with the pre-qual. Well, why the pre-qual? Well, I would guess that if you're not pre-qualifying them, you don't know their motivation, which is either A, since you don't know their motivation, you're having a hard time connecting with them. Okay. Or number two, you're going on presentations with people that are not very motivated. And you didn't know that because you didn't pre-qualify them. So nobody was going to get the listing. We had a situation like this. I didn't get the agent's permission to use their name, but we had an agent, very good agent in our company, did this a few years ago. They were frustrated. Closing ratio was really low. And so we talked about the pre-qual. And they said, you know, you're right. I'm not pre-qualifying everybody. Okay. So I said, do me a favor. And their closing ratio was, I think, 35. This was a few years ago, so I forget the exact number. But let's just say it's 35%. And this is an agent that closes, you know, at that time was 20 or so listings a year. I mean, a good agent. The closing ratio was 35%. So I said, go back to all the listings that you didn't get signed, the listing presentations you went on that didn't get signed. And then I want you to see if those people ended up listing with anybody. And wouldn't you know it? So they go back and they've got, you know, I don't know, 50, you know, presentations that they had done. They've got 20 of them. So they go back to the other 30 that they didn't get signed. And wouldn't you know it, that 90% of those people never signed with anybody. Which means almost all of the ones that this agent didn't get, really, they shouldn't have been going on a listing presentation anyway. Most people didn't list with anybody. So it wasn't a price, wasn't commission, wasn't your skills or anything like that. They were not motivated to sell. So, okay, well, let's take out the ones that never listed with anybody. So how many actually listed with somebody? Well, there was 8. Okay, so now what's your closing ratio? 5%. Huh. Okay. So really, you're actually closing 85% of the listings you're going on when there's actually a chance to get the listing sold. That's why I'm going to go to the pre-qual first, to make sure you're going on presentations with motivated people. All right. I get, you track the numbers and you want to know again, any contacts. Has anyone here ever made a bunch of contacts just for the sake of making contacts? I have 3 people admitting to it, and the rest of you are lying, except for maybe Tess. You're making contact. Well, I just know I have to make contacts every day. And yeah, you do have to make contacts every day, but wouldn't it be nice to know how many contacts you need to get a deal so you can actually plan for it? Well, I know that if I want to take 1 listing a month, it's going to take me 500 contacts. Now, everybody might be different. It might be 1,000 for you. You might be at your career where it's 50. Who knows? Let's say it's 500 contacts. Okay, if I know it's going to take me 500 contacts and I say, okay, I need 1 listing a month and I'm going to work 20 days this month, then I know that I need to make 25 contacts a day. And if I make 25 contacts a day, that's 500. That'll get me a listing a month. But if I don't know that and I'm exhausted, I made 20 contacts today. Okay, that's great. But you're not going to get your listing because you're not going to hit your number at the end of the month. You also need to know where you need to improve on. So this is the point of tracking the numbers. It's not tracking the numbers just because, for the sake of tracking the numbers. I'm telling you, I could go into your numbers analyzer, and some of you will, and we've done this before, and I could tell you all kinds of different things, just the numbers, where you need to work on, what you need to do, things along those lines. Okay. Let me give you another example. Has anyone here ever set an appointment and then the person canceled or no-showed? Okay, great, yes. Sometimes that happens every so often, but if I look at your numbers analyzer and I say, okay, you set 25 listing appointments, but you only went on 10. Well, we have a problem. 15 people didn't show up. Now, some of them aren't going to show up, but 15 out of 25 didn't show up. What would you think a question I would ask is to that? If 15 out of the 25 listing appointments didn't show up, canceled, what do you think's a question that I might ask on that information? There's one in particular, but I want to see. What do you think's a question I'm going to ask?
Are you calling back to confirm they got your package? And
did you call back and confirm? 5-step listing process, right? Yep. 5-step listing process. Did you call back and confirm? What else? What else could be a reason? What else could be a question that I might ask if you're getting a lot of no-shows or listing presentations? What do you think?
Did you follow the 5-step process?
Right. Yeah. Did you follow the 5-step process? Did you mail a package? Did you call back and confirm? Sure. Right. Here's another question that I'm going to ask. How far out are you setting the appointment? Meaning that today's Wednesday, I set the appointment and we're meeting Tuesday of next week, which is 6 days. There's a lot that can happen in 6 days that's going to prevent them from meeting with you. Now, if it's client, center of influence, maybe you can spread it out a little bit. But if it's not, and you're setting the appointment for 6 days later, good chance they're not going to show, or they're going to cancel, or they're going to push it back, something like that. So maybe you need to work on getting your appointment. Well, Robert, but they can't meet until Tuesday. Figure it out. I want you to, here's an important thought on this one, okay? Getting them to meet sooner. Forget the rules, it's only going to take this much time. For those of you that go on listing presentations, what's a fair amount of time that it takes to do a listing presentation? You go on presentations, I don't. In today's world, what's a fair amount of time that you're going to be on a listing presentation? Anybody?
20 to 30 minutes?
Tess says 20 to 30 minutes. Does anybody disagree, agree? Anyone else? Shorter, longer? Is Tess the only one that goes on listing presentations? Okay, Ray, 45
If we
minutes.
sign every single document, it takes longer.
What's that, Melinda?
If we sign every single document, it takes a little longer.
Okay, great. But prior to signing every single document, how long's the presentation? From the time
20 to
you
30
from the time you get to the door.
Well, it could be 1 minute,
Okay, it can be, but on average.
20 to 30 minutes.
Okay, 20 to 30 minutes. Thank you. Okay, 45 minutes, 40, 60. Okay, great. So I'm seeing some numbers here. So, and it's pretty much, it sounds like it's ranging anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour, which is kind of what I expected. Okay. There's 72 hours, there's 24 hours a day. So within a 3-day window, there's 72 hours. There's got to be a time slot in that 72-hour span that they can meet you for 30 minutes if they're motivated to sell. There just has to be. Okay? Unless it's a really, really life circumstance. Well, they're going to sell their house because the patient died. They can't meet with me this week because they got funeral arrangements. They got all this stuff they got to deal with. Okay, I get it. I want to sell my house because I'm moving to San Francisco. 72 hours, I'm asking for 30 minutes, which is 1/144th of that time. You've got to figure out the time slot that you can meet them. So let me give you an example. Well, how today, Thursday at 2 o'clock. Oh, Thursday at 2 o'clock is not going to work. Okay, let me ask you a question. Is it the Thursday part that's a problem, or is it the 2 o'clock part that's a problem? Well, we can't meet at 2 o'clock. I'm not off work. Okay, what time do you get off work? Well, I get off work at 5. Great. How about Thursday at 5:30 then? See, box it in to figure out, is it the day or the time instead of, how about Thursday at 4? Well, that's not going to work. Okay, how about Friday at 1? Well, that's not going to work. And then you just keep pushing back the day. Is it the day or the time? See, this is all, this conversation, we just went into a 10-minute conversation based on one thing I was looking at the numbers. This is what I'm talking about. I'm doing this as an example of, if you fill out your numbers, we can really pinpoint some of these things and say, gosh, this might be the issue. This might be where you can improve on, or wow, look how good you're doing in this particular area. That's where you can find your strengths and weaknesses. Okay. I wrote down here next, tracking your numbers is not just about contacts, presentations. Tracking your numbers is about sources. Where are you getting the leads from? Are you getting it from past clients? Are you getting it from just listed, just sold, for sale by owners, expires, for rent by owners, absentee owners, condos, probates, canceleds, old expireds, new expireds, 2 bedrooms? You know, where are you getting it? Ray says Arch telecommunication. Yeah. So where the dialer that you're using, the numbers you're getting. So what are the sources that you're getting? So I'll give you another example of why this is important. This is a real life example. We've done this with a few people, but I'll give you one in particular. I had an agent that, again, 20, 25 unit producer on a pretty regular basis, looked at the numbers, tracked their sources. They said, okay, out of the 25 deals, where did the deals come from? Okay. 20 of the 25 came from past client centers of influence. Pretty neat, right? 1 came from an expired, and then the other came from something regarding the listing, either a sign call, just sold, something like that. Okay. All right. So then I said, well, let's look at your prospecting hours. How much time are you spending prospecting your database? Oh, about an hour a day, 30 minutes to an hour a day. Okay. What about the rest? So I spend about 2 hours calling expireds. True story. True story. Okay. So if I look at your numbers, 2 out of the 3 hours a day, you're calling expireds. Yes. So you're spending 67% of your prospecting on what equated to 4% of your business. Meanwhile, you're spending 33% of your prospecting, 1 out of 3 hours on past client centers of influence, of what equated to 80% of your business. But we don't know that if we're not tracking. Otherwise, we just think, I'm calling past clients, but how much time? And I'm using that as an example.
I need your help.
You know, you might be different. You might be in the opposite. You might be, hey, actually, I'm spending 80% of my time calling past client centers of influence, and it's equating a certain amount of my business. But I've actually closed 5 just listed, just sold this year, and I never call them. You should call them more. This is the beauty of tracking. We can find the strengths and weaknesses and how business. Okay, just making sense so far? Is there anything I've said that's of any sort of first 25 minutes? Okay, great. All right, I wrote down here the next point, right? For now, keep track of your numbers every day. Don't worry if it doesn't make sense to you right now. Keep track of your numbers every day. Don't worry if it doesn't make sense to you right now. It will eventually, okay? This is, as Mike Ferry would say, blind faith. It might not make sense, okay? I don't get it. Just do it anyways. But here's what I want you to write down. This is really important for some of you. Some of you, this isn't the deal. Some of you, it is. I don't buy into the idea that your numbers challenged. I don't buy into that idea one bit. I hear this excuse all the time. I'm just not really good with numbers. How can you not be good with numbers in a profession that requires math? You seem to be really good with numbers figuring out your commission. You seem to be really good with numbers when we accidentally charge you an extra month of E&O. You seem to be really on top of that number when there happens to be an extra E&O charge in there on accident. Boy, you're really good. Okay. Don't tell me. Don't tell me your numbers challenge. That's one of the biggest excuses we get with tracking. Oh, numbers, Robert, I'm just numbers challenged. That's bogus. I'm not going to buy into that. Okay. Hey, don't worry if it doesn't make sense today. It will eventually. Okay. Now I wrote down here, don't complicate the process of tracking numbers. If you're in Mike Ferry coaching, you get the Mike Ferry numbers analyzer. If you're with our company, we also give you a numbers analyzer. Very simple to use. You open it up and it just says, boom, tracking your numbers. And you just put it in. Now, what I would recommend is take 5 minutes at the end of each day to put in your numbers each day, because it's hard to keep track throughout the whole week and then put it all in at the end of the week in full. So I would just take 5 minutes, put your numbers in every single day. Okay. Okay. Now, make sure you're tracking your ratios in your numbers analyzer to see if you're improving. Make sure you're tracking the ratios in your numbers analyzer to see if you're improving. So, case in point, you might go the first 3 months of 2022 and it's taken you 500 contacts to get a listing. That's fine. Look, everyone's different, but the goal is to get better. So the second quarter of 2022, you need to be able to track to see, well, how many contacts did it take me to get a listing this quarter? And hopefully it's 450, 400. All right. So make sure you're tracking your ratios, that you're getting better and you're figuring it out. Tracking numbers solves one of the most bogus sales cliches there is. Okay. Now, those of you that have been around me for a while know I hate sales cliches. Okay. And one of them that I hate the most is, well, every no gets me closer to a yes. Well, if you don't fix your pitch, every no just gets you closer to another no. But if you realize that you're getting a lot of no's and you're tracking that and you're going, gosh, it's taken me 500 contacts to get a listing. Let me fix this. And now it's taken me 400. Now the no's are getting you closer to a yes. But if you don't track your numbers, you don't know that. I'm just making calls. And I'm going to get a listing at some point. Tracking your numbers helps you clear that cliche. Okay. Now, here's really important. I want everyone, if you haven't been listening yet, listen now. Okay. After this point, you can stop listening again. Okay. This is a really important point. The numbers only work if you tell the truth. Highlight
Leave
that.
me out.
Highlight it, underline. Look at, let's be honest. Who here has ever lied about their numbers to somebody because they didn't want to feel bad? Yeah, okay. So me and Matt, that's it. Liar, liar, pants on fires. Thank you, Melinda. Could have been about anything. How many contacts you made for the day, how many, whatever you had to do, right? At some point we've lied because we didn't want to feel bad or whatever the case may be. The numbers only work if you tell the truth. So if you only made one contact today, put it in there. If you made 0, put zeros. If you didn't preview property, put it in there. Because if you don't lie about it, it's going to mess up the ratios. And then you're not going to look so good. And then we can't really figure out what the problem is. Because ultimately, when we look at the closing problems and things like that, Robert, I'm not getting enough closings. I'm not closing enough deals. Ultimately, what's probably the biggest reason why? If you were being truthful on your numbers analyzer and you told me you weren't closing enough deals, what do you think would be the biggest reason why? Marticela says not prospecting enough. Anybody else want to agree, disagree? I see a couple nods. That's it. That's the answer. So by telling the truth, we can go into the numbers analyzer and you could say, Robert, I want to close more deals. Okay, let's look at your numbers analyzer. Well, how many contacts did you make this week? 35. Okay, what about last week? 22. What about the week after that? 31. Okay. I have it. You're not prospecting enough. You're not talking to enough people. Yes, there's skills and stuff involved and things like that, but that's the problem. But if you lie about it and you say, well, no, Robert, I made 150 contacts this week. Okay. God, you made 150 contacts this week and 150 contacts last week and 150 contacts the week before, and you don't have one lead? Well, we got to work on some other stuff. When really, that's not what we need to work on. It doesn't do you any good, realistically, okay, to lie about it. And it doesn't help from the coaching standpoint to lie about it either. The truth. Be honest with yourself. It's okay. If it's at 0, it's a 0. But if it is 200, then it's 200. Typically, I know. You want to know how I know you're lying? You want to know how I know you're lying on your numbers analyzer? All your numbers are round numbers. Meaning every week you have exactly 150 contacts. I'm like, that's just not true. That is just not true. There was a week somewhere where you ended in a 3. You had 123 contacts. Okay. 112. Okay. You had an odd number in there. So when you put 150 or 100 every single week, I know you're lying. I just know it. So if you're going to lie, be more creative, I guess is what I'm saying there. All right. I wrote down here this is Mike Ferry line on the numbers don't lie. Do you want to build your business based on reality or based on fantasy? Tell the truth. Okay. Simple stuff. All right. I wrote down here too, in terms of another thing to track in your numbers analyzer, or just not necessarily, it could be a numbers analyzer, it could just be tracking numbers in general, is what months do you typically do your best work? What months do you typically get the most listings, the most buyers in escrow, the most closings, the most lead? What are the months? Why is it important to know what your best months are? Anybody?
So that you know when you want to take a day off.
Oh,
Vacation.
there it is. There it is. So you actually know when is a good time to go on vacation. Because when do we typically think is the best time for real estate? Generally speaking,
Summer.
summer, right?
Yeah.
So Melinda Elmer, what's typically your best closing months?
The fourth quarter.
Fourth quarter, okay. Right, fourth quarter. Every year. I mean, we look at your numbers every year and it's typically the
Except
fourth
for
quarter
this
every
year.
Yeah, well. You failed in December at an incredibly high level.
First quarter was my best quarter this last year.
Yeah, okay. Probably because you did all the work in the fourth quarter of the year before. Okay?
Correct.
Right. It's never been, for as long as I've known you, it's never been the summer.
No.
I mean, you have good summers. It's not like you do zeros in the summer, but it's never your best months.
Nope.
Okay. And there's a lot of people like that. Okay. Mark and Al, you know, they closed 5 deals last week. Okay. Now again, they always do well, but their fourth quarter typically for them is their biggest quarters. Okay. Somewhere along those lines. Now, for some people, it might be the opposite. For some people, it might be the summer. Oh gosh, there's all these things going on. We're cruising, we're rocking in the summer. You need to figure out when's your best time. So you A, know, don't take off that time. And B, when should I really crank up ability? When should I hit some ultimate prospecting days? Because I need to feed the meter. And I want to do that. I'm at my best. Figure your best months are, your best quarters are. Okay. I wrote down here next, find an accountability partner, either within your office or something that forces you simply just to track your numbers on a daily basis. That's it. I have a tracking number accountability. Now, it doesn't matter what I did, contact-wise or anything like that. I just need somebody at the end of the day to call me or text me to say, did you put in your numbers in the numbers analyzer yet? Doing it right now. Tracking number accountability partner. Okay. And it's very simple. It's a quick text message. Did you do it? Yes. Okay. I wrote down here next, right? Keep your analyzer current. Keep your analyzer current. Well, Robert, I'm taking a couple of weeks off for vacation. Okay. Keep your analyzer current. Don't try to go back and figure out the previous 2 weeks. Keep it current. Make sure it's up to date before you leave. And then the first day you get back, keep going from there. And if anything happened while you were gone, something went pending, go back and put it in there. Keep it current. It's too this stuff going backwards. All right. And I wrote down here next, by tracking your numbers, you will know referring business to you and how much each client is worth to you. By tracking your numbers, you will know who's referring business to you and how much each client is worth to you. One of the most powerful things in tracking your numbers, you can identify how much each contact is worth. So here's why that's important. When you identify what each contact is worth or what each hour of prospecting is worth, it's easier to fight off the distractions. Let me give you an example. If each hour of if you tracked your numbers and each hour of prospecting was worth $250, and someone came to your door and wanted to talk to you about what happened in the sports game yesterday for $250 an hour, are you going to stop prospecting? No. But if you don't know that it's $250 and you do want to talk about the Laker game, yeah, come on in. Let's talk about it. You need to know what each hour of prospect is worth to fight off the distractions. It also is to keep you on schedule. In real estate, be honest, is it easy to get off schedule? Yes. Yes, it is. Very easy to get off schedule in real estate. So one of the ways you can stay on schedule is obviously have your goals in front of you, but would it help to stay on schedule if you knew exactly how much your time was worth that you're working? Is that helpful? Okay. So figure. And if you, once you figure that out, then you can tell people that are trying to distract you, hey, buddy. Look, I make $250 an hour prospecting. So $250 to get the hell away from me. I'm good either way. Okay, see you later. Good. Go. You think I'm joking, but I would really do that to people. Okay. Okay. If you knock on my door, you owe me $250 or whatever your number is, $100, $50. Well, Robert, I only make $50 an hour prospecting. That's 100 tacos. Not bad. It's not bad, right? Somebody owes me lunch. Fight off the distractions when you know how much each contact is worth. Wouldn't it be nice to know how much each contact was worth? So then you go, well, Robert, I made 15 contacts today. Yeah. I go, great. Well, what was the goal? 20. Well, and I go into your analyzer. Wow, each contact based on your analyzer, $50. And you missed your goal by 5 contacts today, right? Right. Well, that's $250. Over the course of over the course of a week, that's $1,200. Over the course of a year, we're talking about 50 grand. Who here would be okay if you made an extra $50,000? Sometimes it's making 5 extra contacts. $1,000 over the course of the year, could you find an extra half hour to make 5 contacts in your day? See what I'm doing here, and I know this is not an interesting, sexy, really cool, fun topic. What I'm doing right now is showing you the power of tracking your numbers that I can get in the analyzer, and I can pick apart all these things to get you to where you want to go. If you don't track your numbers, I can't do anything I've just talked about for the last
What happened? He's frozen?
I'll text him right now.
All right, Tess, take it away.
He is still tracking where he is.
You're funny. This is the time that you guys can talk about Robert, and he cannot say anything about it. You're like, wait.
Ray, are you with MFO? Ray,
Me? Yes, I am. I'm in Premier Coaching.
does your coach ever tell you, are you tracking the people that you're talking to?
When you say tracking the people that I talk to, meaning having conversation with, or just look at the numbers?
No, the numbers, because in my experience, Ramona Kozak is my coach, right?
Wow.
And I'm
Canada.
looking at the numbers. Look to me when he was looking at my numbers. She mentioned that I have more contacts as opposed to how many I have as far as listing appointment. Meaning what she was talking about was I was talking to more like just listed, just sold, as opposed to have to people. So she mentioned to me that I have to watch the people that I'm talking to.
Right.
Yeah, because I have, the reason why I stopped talking to the expired is because I did my sources. You know, every year I'm only closing maybe, I would say minimum of 2 or 3 expireds.
Right.
And I'm doing more of the past client, obviously, but I'm talking to more of the just listed, just sold, because they said that there's more people there. But she's saying that I am actually talking to a lot of people, you know, which gives me my numbers of how many people that I'm talking to. You're back. Did you track how many numbers you went through to get here?
You know, here's the thing.
I'm kidding.
No, I didn't realize that people were going to be so upset about this topic that they were going to kick me off the Zoom. But what are you going to do? All right. Well, look, I'm glad the conversation continued. So, look, the point is, as I was wrapping up here, is I understand this is not an exciting topic. It's not a cool topic. It's not, you know, all that interesting. But I just did 45 minutes of showing that if I could look at the analyzer, I can pick apart so many different things. I say I, but it's a we. It's self, Neil, your Mike Ferry coach, your Tom Ferry coach, whoever you coach with, okay, can do that. But if you don't track the numbers, really, we're just guessing. It's all we're doing. It's just guessing to figure out what the problem may be. It's not hard. It's 5 minutes at the end of every day to be honest, put your numbers in, okay? And then just really go from there. And I'm telling you, it's going to make a huge, huge difference in your business, okay? All right, questions on anything I went over? I'm over my time. Some of you thought I was over my time 30 minutes ago. That's a different story. All right, everybody, that's all I got. I appreciate it. Great work. We have an afternoon of prospecting still to go.